All righty, I think we are good. Mayor, if you want to go ahead and begin.
Okay, thank you. We are sad and disheartened to report that another teenager has been shot and killed in our city overnight. The circumstances around this are still coming in at this point, and a lot of misinformation has circulated this morning. I extend my heartfelt sympathies to his family and loved ones. The bottom line, our city must be safe for everyone, and this gun violence cannot persist. We've been working on a lot of violence prevention and interruption ideas across the city, and we can answer more about that in a few minutes. But first, I want to let Chief Thomas share what KPD has been working on all night to piece together the details. And I want to get right to Chief Thomas for an update on the investigation. Chief.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for meeting with us today under these difficult circumstances. I want to start by going over the details regarding last night's shooting that resulted in the death of a 15-year-old male. I also want to reiterate that this is a very fluid situation and that these are preliminary details which are subject to change following further investigative efforts. At around 11:22 p.m. last night, KPD officers were advised that a juvenile male gunshot victim had arrived at the UT Medical Center via a personal vehicle. The victim was driven there by a female citizen who stated that she saw the victim on Cherokee Trail, picked him up, and drove him to the hospital. The victim was in surgery when investigators attempted to speak with him and were unable to ascertain any details. Early this morning, at around 5:45 a.m., officers were advised that the victim had been pronounced deceased as a result of his injuries. At this stage, it is unknown exactly where or when the victim was shot. Investigators have received conflicting information, and there were several shots fired calls last night. Needless to say, we are still working to determine those details. We've received several questions regarding a shots fired incident that occurred last night at the 811 East downtown apartment complex located at 811 Evolve Way. This occurred at around 10:45 p.m. last night. Officers did respond to a shots fired call at that location and were able to locate evidence of a shooting. However, no gunshot victims were located on that scene, and it is unknown if that was related to our current investigation at this time. Some details have been reported regarding the victim. Though we are not releasing the victim's name at this time, we can confirm that he was a 15-year-old male. The victim was a registered student at Austin East Magnet High School, but had not attended since September of 2020. The victim was in state's custody and was reported as a runaway from a youth impact center in Crossville, Tennessee in late October 2020. The victim had not been seen since, despite repeated efforts to locate him, and was still listed as a runaway at the time of this event. Again, I want to reiterate that this remains a very active and fluid investigation. And unfortunately, there is little that we can answer at this point. We are still working to piece this together. Again, at this time, investigators are continuing to look for any and all evidence and possible witnesses. We ask that anyone with information, please contact us through the available avenues. You can call the KPD Crime and Drug Hotline at 865-215-7212 or email violentcrimes@knoxvilletn.gov, or even call the Violent Crimes Unit Temp line at 865-410-0839. Anyone wishing to submit tips anonymously can do so. Unfortunately, that's all I have at this time.
All right, Chief and Mayor, thank you. We'll get right into questions. The first question, will KPD increase its patrolling presence around Austin East in response to this latest death? And if yes, for how long?
We are right now, we have increased our patrols. We have no more capacity to do any more. We're doing everything at this point that we are able to. We will continue these patrols as long as we can, but we are, working overtime to continue this effort. And we hope at some point to get a viable tip or have someone from the community step up and give us some information that will help us in these crimes.
The next question is, Gillette was last at Austin East in September of 2020. How does the city APD work with KCS to address students who do not show up for class?
That's more of a school question, so I'd have to defer to Knox County Schools. Our SROs, if we have information that a student has been seen outside the school and we know where they are, we will try and put that out and have officers pick them up. But this was a situation where DCS was involved already, so I don't have any particulars on this specific situation.
All right, the next question is from Brian Hornback. Is it possible, and if so, has it been considered to impose an overnight curfew in the area of Austin East of East Knoxville?
We've not considered it. I don't think that's anything we would consider. We haven't determined a crime scene for this latest victim, but I don't see where that would help the situation. I can defer that to the mayor because you would have to.
Yeah, I'm not considering that. There's no indication that this latest incident happened anywhere near any school. Also, unfortunately, some of our violent crimes are happening at all hours of the day. Sometimes they're at night, sometimes they're in the afternoon. So a curfew is not a tool that we're considering at this time.
All right, the next question is from John North. Can you discuss the circumstances of the shooting, Chief, where and when it occurred? I believe you've kind of already answered that, but just to reiterate that again.
Yes, again, where and when, we really, the when we're not sure of either. We had a couple of shots fired calls, that shots fired call at 811 East that we're following up on. If anybody else has any other further information, maybe they heard some shots and didn't call it in, if they would please call one of those numbers or our email, we would appreciate that information.
Chief, also from John North, who drove the victim to the hospital? Have you talked with that person, and what did that person say?
So I gave you all the information we have. It was a female, and yes, the officers did talk to her, and that's all we can release at this time.
All right, the next question is from B. Crocker. I believe that this is Brittany from Knox News. If so, can you make sure you identify yourself in the upcoming questions? The question is, has there been an increase in the reward offered in the two most recent shootings before this one? Chief.
No, the reward that has been offered was offered through the FBI, through some of their community funds that they have available. So at this point, no, it has not been increased at this time.
I would just like to add that we are working to stand up this Crime Stoppers, which is a separate 501c3 that has been very successful at offering rewards. City Council approved funding for that. We're working to get it set up, and then that will enable us to raise funds for rewards for crimes in Knoxville in general and for these ones specifically. But it's not there yet, but we're working on making that happen as soon as possible.
All right, Mayor, thank you. The next question is from John North again. What was the condition of the young man when he got to the hospital, Chief? Was he conscious?
Again, he had already been taken into surgery by the time, when we got there, so we weren't able to talk with him. I don't know.
Also, a follow-up question. He was reported missing from Crossville in October. Can you explain why and what was his living situation? Again, I think you've answered this, Chief, but just to reiterate it again.
So he was in DCS custody at that point, and it was DCS who did report him missing. We had received information of several different addresses in the meantime since that October date that we had checked on, but were never able to make contact with him.
All right, Chief, Brian Hornback has asked if you could repeat the email and phone number for tips. And Brian, we will also put this out on social media this afternoon on some of the city and KPD social media accounts. But if you could repeat that again, Chief, please.
Yes, most certainly. The KPD Crime and Drug Hotline, which is an unrecorded and 24/7 answered hotline by a real person, is area code 865-215-7212. The other hotline is a violent crimes tip line, and it is 865-410-0839. And then we have an email as well, violent crimes with an S, violent crimes at knoxvilletn.gov.
Another follow-up, Chief, I'm sorry, I feel like you've answered this one as well, but just because I think these questions were coming in so quickly, just to make sure it's asked, was it a stranger that brought the victim to the hospital?
As far as we know, we don't have any further details on that, but yes, as far as we know.
The next question is from John North. If you know, is there any relationship between the 15-year-old teen with the shooting victim, Stanley Freeman Jr. and Janaria Muhammad?
We don't have any indication that any are related at this point.
Austin from WATE wants to know, is there any indication these victims may have known each other in some capacity?
That I don't know. I don't know.
All righty, and John North just asked the same question, so I'm going to move on again to the next one. Austin from WATE, you just said that you do not have the capacity to step up patrols in that area. Why not? Is this a lack of resources?
So what we have done is we have increased mandatory overtime for our officers so that we can have more patrol vehicles on the street, more patrol officers on the street in that particular area. Not even just that particular area, but during certain times of day. And so we have been responding to crimes all over the city, not just in the East Knox area, but we've had crime south, violent crime south, short south, and we are following up on all of those with this extra manpower that we created through the use of having officers work overtime. Fortunately, we do have officers coming out of our field training program that just graduated from 2 academies. We have another academy starting March 29th that will have 35 in it. So we've got a light on the horizon that more help is coming. So we will increase our capacity, and we are doing the best we can with what we have right now to saturate the areas that we are having violent crimes occur.
I would just like to add that I'm fully committed to giving KPD the resources they need to fight crime, investigate crime, prevent crime. But even if we had the resources to have a police officer 24/7 on every corner of the city, we're going to need the community's help to prevent crime, to help share information so we can intervene before people shoot or get shot. And so that's a big part of the violence interruption and prevention. We need law enforcement, but we need that interruption and prevention to be coming from the community. And we're working on that as we speak, talking to community people who are interested in this work, already doing this work, how we can build those bridges so when there's information out there, when family members are worried about one of their relatives getting in trouble, becoming vulnerable to dangerous things, that we can give them support and help so they don't become a victim or perpetrator of violent crime.
All right, the next question is also from Austin at WATE. He writes, we are hearing about a potential hit list on social media that may or may not have included the names of at least one of these victims. What can you tell us about that potential list?
Yes, so we were made aware of that list a couple of weeks ago. We did take it very seriously, as we do anything that we have on social media. It appears to be, as we chased it down, as we followed it down, to be a social media spat among some juveniles. No evidence of a valid threat. However, even though we feel like that there was not a valid threat, we did investigate it. We made contact with the individuals on the list or their family members as much as possible. Of course, there's one individual we were unable to make contact with, but did locate family members. But yes, we wanted family to be aware of this list as well, so that if there was any other information out there, we could gain that.
All right, Chief, thank you. John North wants to know, has the social media tip line targeted at teens gotten any tips that matter? That social media tip line from the FBI.
So yes, or I should say no, we've not received any tips of substance since the FBI reward and tip line was announced, none.
Alrighty, Brittany Crocker from Knox News wants to know, can you offer specific updates on investigations into the deaths of Stanley Freeman and Janaria Muhammad?
Unfortunately, I have nothing further on those investigations at this time.
All right, John North says, Any chance this shooting or others are gang related? And can you address your thoughts about gang violence today in the city? Chief, let's start with you.
We're looking into every possibility. We have found that there are many juveniles who are involved in what we term gangs. It's not the traditional sense of gangs that we have understood from the past is to be one, East versus West, Crips versus Bloods, that type of thing. These are very loosely knit gangs. The members change membership day to day, week to week. So they are very hard to follow. But yes, we do have an intel unit that does follow these. And we're looking at all those possibilities. We don't have any evidence this far, but we are looking at those possibilities.
Mayor, do you want to chime in your thoughts about gang violence today in the city?
Yeah, I mean, clearly we do have young people who are being attracted to these ideas of gangs and the sense of belonging, and sometimes this unfortunate sense that it's a glorified type of thing. So our concern is not whether people are in a gang so much as the activities that gangs may commit that are illegal and violent and killing people or threatening people. So to the extent that community members are worried about family members getting involved in gangs, please work with our youth serving organizations, with our faith-based leaders, with the grandmothers and leaders down the block, and say, look, I'm worried my son, my grandson, my granddaughter is getting connected to these things, and I'm worried. Please help me redirect them, give them healthy, active, safe things to do. We've got Boys and Girls Club, we've got Emerald Youth Foundation, we have the Change Center, we have a lot of organizations that want to help, and our school system, I know, is working on these issues too. So when you see something, say something. Let's intervene before people become victims or perpetrators of violence.
The next question is from Will Puckett at WVLT. The 811 apartments near KPD headquarters. How many officers responded to that shots fired incident, Chief, and how many often respond to calls like that?
I don't have that information right now, but normally a shots fired call, it depends on the details we have. I would normally say at least 2, but again, I don't have that information with me right now. I can have Scott Erlin follow up on that.
This next question is from Brittany Crocker at Knox News. The victim's most recent living situation, she wants to know, was KPD not able to contact him or they did not try to contact him?
No, we were not able to contact him. We have tried, we have put out bolos to all our patrol officers. Unfortunately, as a juvenile, we can't spread those to the media. But we had several, as I had stated before, we became aware through intelligence of different addresses where he may have been staying at different times, and we did check those, and we were never able to catch up with him.
The next question is from Scott Barker at the Compass. This is for the Chief. How many times was last night's victim shot, and do you have any information on a weapon?
I don't have either. Those questions, I don't have information on either of those, sorry.
The next question is from John North, again to the Chief. You mentioned the victim had been spotted in the Cherokee Trail area. Had there been any shots fired calls in that area last night?
Yeah, in the Cherokee Trail area, not that we're aware of. Again, if there is anybody out there who heard something that they did not report, please let us know so we can follow up. As I said, sometimes people hear things and they just don't report it. So you can report it anonymously. Please let us know. But no, we had no reports last night as of yet in the Cherokee Trail area.
Austin from WATE wants to ask again, what are the locations or addresses of the other shots fired calls last night?
We had, and I'll have to have Scott follow up on that. There was one that appeared to be domestic related over in the West District. I can't remember the exact address.
All right, Brian Hornback wants to know, could other agencies like KCSO, TBI, FBI, and other surrounding areas come in and assist you with patrols?
Not particularly with patrolling, but they are all assisting us. For example, TBI sent investigators at times to most recently to knock on doors and do interviews as they can. FBI we work with continuously in different capacities and involve them in quite a few of our investigations, and they have been involved or are working with us on these. So all of our partners, in fact, we met with them a couple of weeks ago in one room to talk about how we all work together. So yes, we all work together.
Yeah, but I was part of that meeting, and all of our law enforcement partners, county, state, and federal, were there and willing to help and participate in every way they can. They already are supporting, and they understand the urgency of this, and that we're all in this together. So I know that's already happening, and I appreciate the chief's leadership on that.
Chief Brittany Crocker with Knox News wants to know the victim was registered as a student in September of 2020, but then fled a group home in Crossville in October. Did DCS send him to Crossville, or can you provide any context about the location change?
That I don't know. That would be a DCS decision, and we don't have insight into that.
The next question again, Chief, from John North. Is there a message you would like to give the families of this young man and the other two young victims?
Thank you for that opportunity. Yes, we will not rest until those who have committed these violent crimes are brought to justice. And anyone who has the smallest detail, if they would please come forward and give us that last missing piece that we may need, or that first piece to lead us down a path to where we can make an arrest. That's the most important thing. I can tell you that the investigations that I have seen and been involved in, it's the people who come forward that make the difference. Our investigators, the ones that are our best investigators, ask the right questions of the people who were there, people who think they may not even have seen anything significant, and we glean information from that leads us forward. So please, families, we are working and doing the best we can, but any information you have, or if anyone's reached out to you and said they had seen or heard something, please let us know. That may lead us in the direction to make an arrest and bring those responsible to justice. And I know that's what this community wants. The community wants to have justice for these victims. And if you can help us with that in any way at all, we welcome that.
Mayor, do you have a message for these families as well? I know you've been talking to a lot of them behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, I spoke to a family member of Stanley Freeman today and a family member of the victim of the homicide last night I spoke to today. I send them my heartfelt condolences. I also say we're working on this. This is not your fault, and this is not your fight. And I welcome their messages that they are working to keep the peace. That's where we stop the violence and stop the retaliation. So we need to make sure that we share information with law enforcement when we know information about homicides and violence that has already happened, but work with our community leaders when you're worried about someone about to commit an act of violence or be subject to an act of violence, so we can prevent it in the first place. That's something that KPD can't do alone. But we do need your help in investigating these crimes. And I had the opportunity to go walk in the neighborhood out at Five Points and out in Lonsdale with neighborhood leaders, with the youth service organizations out there. I asked them how things were going, and they were worried about the shootings. They said they were really glad to have a greater police presence out there and that they feel safer. So that's good, but we need to keep it up, and we need to address these crimes and prevent any future ones. So my promise is to the families of these victims is we're working very hard to prevent future violence and to investigate and bring to justice the people who have committed these crimes.
All right, this next question is from Will Puckett at WVLT. Again, this is back to the chief, and a question that's been asked already, but there's a little bit extra to it. It says, is there any belief these are connected in some way? Are they gang related? We're hearing rumors that there is a quote unquote music rivalry leading to these shootings.
So I have personally seen a video. As far as the music rivalry, we're not aware of that. You know, we discussed the possibility of gang relatedness. We haven't been able to develop a nexus yet. That is not out of the realm of possibility. But again, we don't have any evidence to that as of yet. So
Okay,
again,
I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm sorry. If anybody has that information, please let us know.
A follow-up question is, why do you think you are getting so little information from the community?
I wish I knew that, because I understand that relationships need to be built. I understand the negative impact that events last year had on police community relations, as well as the COVID epidemic. You know, being able to meet with people where they are, that has hampered us. But please, this is for justice. This has to do with justice for victims. It has to do with doing the right thing, bringing forth information for the right reasons to bring justice to those victims.
All right, Alston from WATE says, we are hearing rumors of shots fired at a parking lot near Sarah Moore Green earlier this week. Can you offer any details on that?
So yes, we were made aware of that. We're following up. We don't have a suspect in that yet. If anyone did see that, the victim came to the police department to file a report, did not call us even from the scene. So, you know, again, if there was anybody that saw that or heard anything, please let us know.
Cliff Hightower writes, Chief, you said rounds were found at one location last night. Was there any other evidence, such as signs of a struggle or a wounding?
So no, we had no victims show up other than our victim who showed up at UT Hospital. So no, we don't have any further on that.
And the last question is from John North, or the last one that's on there now. It says, was this young man from last night found with a weapon?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of.
All righty, any other questions? It looks like we have answered all of the questions on here. If I missed anyone because I was trying to weed out duplicates, please don't hesitate to type that in. If not, thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with the chief and the mayor. If you have any follow-up questions, please let us know. Again, thank you all for joining us, and Mayor and Chief, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.